There is a desert country where a man can lose everything in a single day. A region where male beauty decides who gets married, traditions dictate a family's honor, and the nights hide rituals that very few would dare to imagine. In this new video from Uncensored World, we travel to Chad, one of the most extreme, hidden, and least known countries on the planet. A nation that maintains traditions as provocative as the Gerewol, an ancient ceremony where hundreds of men wear makeup, dance, and compete for days, seeking to be chosen by the women who fill the place, even if they are already married. A festival where women can change partners without hiding it, and where men resort to stimulating plants to dance for more than 6 hours without rest, because being chosen can change their entire life. And yet, many couples do not wait for the end of the ritual, and disappear into the dunes of one of the deadliest deserts in existence. What happens there is not discussed at dawn. An extreme region where lakes disappear without warning, and where there are places that seem like another planet, such as the Tibesti Desert, an ocean of burning dunes considered one of the most inaccessible territories on Earth. This is home to one of the most nomadic peoples on the planet, a nation where a man can have as many wives as he can support, where children learn to ride camels before they can walk, and where initiation rituals are so brutal that young people must walk for hours in over 50-degree heat without water, endure scarring without showing pain, or cross burning embers without taking a single step back. Pay close attention, because getting to know Chad with Uncensored World is to enter a world that almost no one dares to show. Let's get started. In a remote corner of Central Africa, hidden among endless plains and seemingly endless sands, lies Chad, one of the most authentic, surprising, and little-known countries on the continent. It is a land that seems stuck in another era, marked by extreme challenges, impossible climates, and traditions that, as you are about to see, exist nowhere else on the planet. Located in the heart of the Sahel, Chad shares borders with Libya, Sudan, Cameroon, and Niger, in a region where nomadic caravans have traveled for centuries, carrying stories, beliefs, and traditions that are still alive today. Caravans that have often vanished into the sand without a trace, swallowed up by sudden storms, and a climate so unpredictable that it makes this remote region one of the most challenging places on the continent. Despite its enormous size, much of Chad's territory is a mixture of arid plains, ancient mountains, and areas where the desert dominates everything in its path, forcing the population to concentrate in very specific areas of the country. Life has never been easy here, not because of a lack of people, but because of the challenging environment. Chad is a country where nature demands effort, where every day can become a test, and every sunrise a small victory. Surviving in this part of the Sahel means living with one of the most demanding climates in the world, where the land can remain dry for months, and where the winds erase entire roads as if they had never existed. But among all of Chad's extreme landscapes, none is as impressive, enigmatic, and difficult to explain as the Tibesti Desert, a place that seems to come straight from another planet. Before arriving there, it is important to understand that Chad is home to some of the most fascinating cultures on the continent, such as the Wodaabe tribe, famous for their unique vision of beauty, their nighttime rituals, and a way of life that defies everything we understand as tradition. This is a country where nomadic life is still essential. Families travel for weeks following ancestral routes, moving between pastures, temporary oases, and camps that appear and disappear with the seasons. That is why in Chad, it is not unusual for many children to learn to ride camels even before they can walk steadily. Mobility is part of their identity, and survival depends on knowing how to interpret the desert as if it were an open book. Here, identity is formed among dunes, caravans, and ancient stories told around the fire. Stories that speak of resilience, honor, beauty, and a deep connection to the land. But if there is one territory that represents this country like no other and is capable of challenging even the most experienced traveler, it is the Tibesti Desert, a region that seems suspended in time and has for centuries been considered one of the most isolated and difficult to reach places on the planet. The Tibesti is not just any desert, it is a world apart, an immense territory full of volcanic mountains, dark sands, and regions that constantly change shape, as if the earth were breathing beneath your feet. In this desert, sandstorms can appear without warning and cover entire caravans in a matter of minutes. The lack of water in some areas makes every route a challenge, and the landscape changes so much that it is practically impossible to travel without a guide. Travelers must be aware of ancient wells that may be dry or contaminated, and extreme weather that exceeds 50 degrees Celsius during the day, while at night it drops to surprisingly cold levels. The Tibesti also preserves traces of the past, remnants of ancient conflicts that still require caution, such as mines, areas of volcanic activity, and regions where nomadic groups have lived for generations in harmony with an environment that would be impassable for others. In certain areas, there are mountains that seem to change color with the sun, due to natural minerals that stain the rock with exceptional orange tones. It is therefore not surprising that some of the tribes living here consider some of these mountains to be alive and watch over travelers. Emikusi Peak, considered the highest volcano in the Sahara, is located here. Its slopes hold stories of explorers, lost caravans, and routes that only the most experienced nomads know. On some of the Tibesti's walls, cave paintings dating back more than 8,000 years have also been found, bearing witness to vanished cultures that once struggled against this imposing environment. And although today many areas remain remote, silent, and almost impossible to traverse, the Tibesti continues to be one of the most intriguing deserts on the planet, a place where nature imposes its rules, where solitude is absolute, and where, according to legend, there are routes that no one has ever seen again. This challenging reality has made Chad one of the countries with the largest nomadic population in the world. Here, life moves with the climate, with the seasons, and with the ancient roads that caravans have known for generations. Being a nomad is not an easy choice in Chad. It is a necessary response to a changing territory, as the land can dry up in a matter of days, and resources depend entirely on the whims of the climate. It is precisely in this extreme reality that a nickname has emerged that surprises many travelers. Chad is known as the country where lakes disappear. This is not due to myths or exaggerations, but to real phenomena that have transformed its landscape for decades. Lake Chad, once one of the largest on the continent, has seen its size dramatically reduced by drought and agricultural use of water. At certain points in its modern history, it has lost more than half of its surface area. For the communities living around it, this means more than just a change on the map. It is a reminder that survival in Chad depends on adapting quickly or disappearing with the water. And it is precisely this harshness, this constant need to demonstrate strength, that has shaped some of the most extreme and surprising tribes and initiation rituals on the planet. In many ethnic groups in this country, the transition from child to adult is not celebrated with a simple party, but with tests that require courage, endurance, and enormous mental strength. These ceremonies not only prepare young people for nomadic life, but also demonstrate whether they are ready to face an environment that shows no mercy to anyone. One of the toughest challenges for these young people is to walk for hours in temperatures that can exceed 50 degrees, following ancient routes with very little water. The aim is to prove that they can endure the long journeys of nomadic life. In other tests, the young people must stand still in the sun without moving, without seeking shade, and without showing discomfort. It is an exercise that tests both physical and emotional discipline. There are also rituals of controlled thirst and hunger, where they spend hours or even a whole day without drinking, remembering how their ancestors survived by crossing arid regions without guarantees or shelter. It is not unusual for them to sleep outdoors, lying on the sand, listening to the desert wind and the sounds of nocturnal animals. It is direct contact with nature that prepares them for the real life that will come later. Some initiations include crossing giant dunes without help. The elders mark a point in the distance and the young people must reach it on their own. If they fail, their failure is recorded before the entire community. In other clans, boys must carry heavy loads, such as water or wood, to symbolize that they can now contribute to family journeys. It is a test of responsibility rather than strength. There are also scarification rituals, where controlled blows or small marks on the skin symbolize the leap into adulthood. Expressing pain is not allowed, and any sign of weakness is remembered for years. Some communities perform smoke or hot ash baths, a form of purification that connects the initiate with the oldest traditions. Covering the body with ash has a deep spiritual meaning. A particularly striking test is the recitation of genealogies under physical pressure. The young person must remember their ancestors while enduring heat, fatigue, or uncomfortable positions. A failure is not just a mistake. It is interpreted as a lack of respect for family history. There are rituals where they face the loneliness of the desert at night, remaining silent to listen to the ancestors. It is both a spiritual and emotional test. In some ethnic groups, mounds of hot sand are used to partially cover the young man's body, testing his ability to endure the heat without moving or complaining. At the end, the most important moment arrives: the public oath. In front of the entire community, the young man declares his courage and willingness to take on the responsibilities of adulthood. He cannot hesitate or show insecurity. And finally, there is one last test: the return on his own 2 feet. After the entire process, the young man must walk back without help. If he cannot get up or move forward, he is considered not yet ready to face the desert. For these communities, these rituals are not punishments, but a way to ensure that the next generation can survive in one of the most demanding environments on the planet. These extreme rituals have a lot to do with the tribes that must face them. And among them all, there is one group that stands out for its toughness, discipline, and unique way of understanding life in the desert. The Wodaabe, considered by many to be one of the most resilient peoples on the planet. The Wodaabe not only survive in a relentless environment, they master it. While others would need reserves, shelter, and constant rest, they move forward with disconcerting calm, as if the sand, heat, and solitude were a natural part of their bodies. They can walk for hours in temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius, carrying only what is strictly necessary. What would be insufficient for others is more than enough for them. A small ration of milk, a little water, and a few essential items can sustain them for entire days. Living with almost nothing is not a punishment for the Wodaabe. It is their way of understanding freedom. Their home is not a fixed house, but any point in the desert where they can erect a light shelter made of mats and branches. Structures that they dismantle in a matter of minutes when it is time to continue their journey. They have a sixth sense for moving around this immense land, surely a sense they have developed thanks to the initiation rituals they have undergone. That is why the Wodaabe know how to find water, where others only see dunes, recognize moisture by the color of the sand, and read the sky as if it were an ancient map. Even the wind is a sign for them. Its sound tells them whether to keep going or if a storm is approaching from miles away. Speaking of signs, knowing that you are enjoying this video, we would love for you to give us a like and subscribe to Uncensored World. As you can see, here you can discover the world like nowhere else. So thank you. The most fascinating thing about this resilience is that it is not only physical, as the Wodaabe have learned to emotionally withstand an environment that changes without warning. They know that a storm can force them to move, that drought can wipe out their pastures, or that the loss of an animal can mean starting from scratch. But even so, they maintain a serenity that baffles everyone who visits them. This inner strength is what surprises those who know them the most. Where others feel fear, they feel respect. Where others see deprivation, they see tradition. And where others see only a hostile desert, they see a map full of routes, stories, and possibilities. Perhaps that is why, when the Gerewol season arrives, this extraordinary resilience becomes their greatest virtue. As you will now see and surely be surprised by, While many would collapse in minutes, the Wodaabe can dance for more than 6 hours without stopping, maintaining their gaze, perfect posture, and steady rhythm. But their training does not begin weeks or days before the festival. Their training begins as children, from their first steps, from their first nights sleeping in the open air. The desert has shaped the Wodaabe, strengthened them, until they became tireless dancers. And it is probably all this that makes endurance as important as beauty for Wodaabe women. For them, it is important for a man to be attractive, but if he cannot endure the dance, if he cannot maintain the yake gaze, or if he collapses before dawn, he will hardly be chosen. All this takes place in a ritual that dominates the desert nights in this legendary country known as the Gerewol, a festival as ancient as it is mysterious, where men are completely transformed for a few days that can mark the rest of their lives. When the sun sets behind the dunes, everything changes. The light dims, the air grows colder, and families gather to watch a spectacle that combines tradition, courage, seduction, and endurance. That's when the young Wodaabe begin to prepare. They do so calmly with absolute concentration because they know that every detail can be decisive. The Gerewol is, above all, a ceremony of public seduction. Here, it is not the women who dress up to attract a man. Here, the protagonist is him. The man puts on makeup, adorns himself, beautifies himself, and presents himself before them, sought after and observed. For hours, the young men apply red, white, and black pigments to their skin. This is not random makeup. Each color has a deep meaning. Red represents strength and vitality. White symbolizes purity and good fortune. Black evokes ancestral power and connection to the spirits of the desert. When they are finished, their faces glow in the light of the fire as if they were figures carved for an ancient god. But the makeup is only the beginning. What really attracts the women's gaze is the dance, a set of hypnotic movements that has been passed down for generations. And among all the dances, one stands out above the rest. The yake dance, known for its intensity and the strange skill it requires. In the yak, the men must open their eyes as wide as possible, revealing the whites, which are considered a symbol of masculine beauty. The more those eyes shine under the moon, the greater their appeal. What is surprising is that they must do so without blinking for longer than any ordinary person could endure. As they dance, the men sing in deep tones that vibrate in their chests. These are not simple songs. They are ancestral calls that mark rhythm, identity, and desire. For women, each note is a message. For men, it is a reminder that they cannot fail. Because if they fail, the desert does not forget, and neither does their name. The dance of exhaustion is one of the hardest tests. Participants move their bodies for more than 6 hours without stopping, exaggerating their gestures, tensing their muscles, controlling their breathing. Some fall to their knees, others sweat profusely, and many stagger. But they must all get up, not out of pride, but because they know that the women are watching their every move. The relationship between men and women during the Gerewol is unique in the world. Here, women are the protagonists. They are the judges. They are the ones who decide. During the festival, a woman can point to a man, touch his arm, or simply hold his gaze, and that is enough to unite their destinies. There are no arguments, no rejections. It is the women's choice that guides the ritual. For many visitors, the most surprising thing is not that a woman can choose from hundreds of men. What is truly striking is that she can do so even if she already has a partner. The Gerewol is one of the few rituals where female freedom is absolute and respected, and her decision is accepted without question. On certain nights of the festival, when the music dies down and the fire flickers, some couples slip away into the desert dunes. They seek intimacy, silence, and a place to share a moment that belongs only to them. These escapades can give rise to intimate relationships, decisions about partners, and bonds that do not always last until the next morning. What happens there is not discussed at dawn. It is part of the tradition, a secret between two people. Even so, not everything revolves around love or attraction. The Gerewol is also a stage for demonstrating courage and honor. If two men desire the same woman, they can face each other in a ritual duel. It is not violence. It is a symbolic combat where every gesture must be controlled. The one who backs down loses. The one who maintains his stance demonstrates inner strength. In addition to dancing and duels, some men bear ritual scars on their skin, marks obtained in previous ceremonies that symbolize courage, maturity, and belonging to a strong lineage. For women, these signs can be as attractive as a good dance. There is also the secret choice. In this case, the woman does not warn, point out, or sing her selection. She simply approaches the man she desires, touches him gently, and leaves. This gesture represents a union for that night, a silent choice that no one else has the right to question. During the Gerewol, new couples, fleeting relationships, or commitments that last for years can form. Tradition accepts all possibilities. The essential thing is that the choice must be free and respected. The most fascinating thing is that a single mistake, a blink, a fall, an uncertain glance, can cost a man the honor that his family has defended for generations. That is why, in this region of the world, losing everything in a single day is no exaggeration, but a reality. For the Wodaabe communities, the Gerewol is not just a festival. It is a test of character, beauty, courage, and emotional control. It is a moment when young people demonstrate whether they are capable of mastering their bodies, their voices, their fears, and their desires. A moment when a man's identity can rise or disappear into the dunes. Many men spend months preparing for this ritual. They practice the dance, strengthen their bodies, train their endurance, and perfect their gaze. They know that when the time comes, they must shine brighter than ever. Because if they don't, their chance may be lost forever. Meanwhile, the women watch closely. They are not just looking for beauty. They are looking for a man who can endure, who can keep up the pace, who can maintain his gaze and posture, even when his whole body is crying out for rest. For them, that discipline says much more than makeup ever could. That is why, at the Gerewol, it is said that a woman chooses the man who conquered the night, and to achieve this, he must face fatigue, heat, pride, and the gaze of hundreds of people. In a land where life depends on endurance, where the climate can change destinies, and where tradition still dictates family honor, this ritual remains one of the most surprising cultural expressions on the planet. At this point, and before learning interesting facts such as that men here can have as many wives as they want, that they trade women for camels, or that some of these multiple wives live in separate houses, forming small micro-camps, we would like to ask you, would you be willing to wear makeup for the love of your life? Would you be able to go 6 hours without blinking while hundreds of women watch you? Would you dance for hours or fight a duel with a rival? And what do you think about the fact that they are the ones who choose and can change their minds whenever and however they want? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World, so that we can continue working every week to bring you content as interesting as this. So thank you. In Chad, the idea that a man can lose everything in a single day takes on an even deeper meaning when we talk about family structure. This is especially true in southern regions and among various groups in the Sahel, where polygamy remains an accepted and respected practice, and, in some cases, a symbol of prestige. Here, a man can have several wives as long as he can support them, protect them, and ensure their well-being. It is not a competition of numbers, but a demonstration of ability. Having more than one wife is not valued for desire, but for responsibility, work, and reputation within the community. The logic behind this tradition surprises many visitors. For nomadic communities, where the climate can change everything, having several wives means having a larger and stronger family, capable of producing food, caring for livestock, and maintaining grazing routes. In such a demanding environment, more hands mean a better chance of survival. But there is also a symbolic element. In some areas, the groom's family gives gifts to the bride's father. which may include animals, textiles, utensils, or valuable goods. Camels are sometimes given as a symbol of union or respect, but not as a currency of exchange. It is an honorary gesture that reflects commitment and ability, not a purchase. The curious thing is that within these marriages, women retain a much stronger role than many imagine. In some clans, first wives have authority over the household, oversee the distribution of tasks, and manage family responsibilities. Polygamy does not always imply competition. In several cases, it implies cooperation, alliance, and stability within a traditional system. However, this practice also includes controversial details. There are groups where the first wife can approve or reject new unions, and others where the extended family decides whether a man is fit to take on more responsibilities. In rural areas, there are still stories of wives living in separate houses, forming small micro-camps within the same family territory. Physical distance reduces tensions, while the man shares his time according to rules agreed upon by all. For many, this structure may seem complex, but here it has a profound meaning. In a country where drought, water shortages, and long journeys mark daily life, large families are an emotional anchor and a guarantee of survival. And although it is an ancient custom, it remains a fundamental part of the identity of many communities in Chad. We are coming to the end of this journey. But before we finish our tour of one of the most enigmatic and extraordinary countries on the planet, we have done some thorough research to show you how to visit Chad, how to witness the Gerewol, and how to enjoy a destination that very few dare to explore. Getting to Chad is easier than you might think. From Europe, several airlines fly to N'Djamena, the capital, with regular stopovers in cities such as Paris or Istanbul. From America, it is normal to connect in Europe before continuing on to Central Africa. To enter the country, most travelers need a visa. This can be requested at Chadian embassies or consulates, and it is sometimes possible to obtain it on arrival, although it is best to get it before you travel. As you will now see, this country is one of the cheapest destinations in Africa and the world. A traditional meal, for example, can cost less than $5, a figure that in many Western countries barely pays for a coffee. Mid-range accommodation in N'Djamena usually offers rooms for between $20 and $30 per night. And if you dream of attending the Gerewol and experiencing the desert, a basic excursion with a local guide can start at around $200 and increase considerably depending on the duration, transport, and camp chosen, as logistics in remote areas are complex. If your dream is to witness the Gerewol, it is important to know that the best time to go is between late September and early October, when the Wodaabe tribes gather after the rainy season. There is no fixed date for this festival, as it depends on the weather and the nomads' movements. But the celebrations usually last several days. The safest and most authentic way to experience this ritual is to contact local guides who are familiar with the routes and places where Wodaabe families gather. Some travelers also combine this experience with camel rides, nights under starry skies, and encounters with nomadic communities that maintain ancient traditions. It is important to know that getting around Chad requires careful planning. In the capital, N'Djamena, you can use taxis without any major problems, but to travel to remote regions, it is common to hire a vehicle with a driver or go to experienced local agencies. In this country, distances are long, roads can be in poor condition, and signage is limited, so having guides who know the terrain is essential, especially if you are visiting the Tibesti Desert. The security situation in Chad varies considerably, depending on the region. Some areas, especially border areas, such as the Lake Chad Basin and sections near Libya or Sudan, require extra caution, and the governments of several countries even advise against non-essential travel to these areas. For all these reasons, it is important to gather information before traveling, consult up-to-date official sources, and strictly follow current recommendations. Even with precautions, Chad remains an incredible destination for those seeking authentic experiences, unique rituals, and the thrill of exploring a corner of the world that very few know. Traveling to Chad is not for everyone, but for those who want to discover ancient cultures, impossible landscapes, and traditions that seem to come from another era. It is a journey that leaves its mark. If you also believe, as we do, that the real world surpasses fiction, don't miss our next video, where we will show you one of the most amazing places on the planet. Click now, because what you are about to see will surprise you.